I'm Robert Neve, the Enlight CTO, co-founder. I'm going to take you through Enlight 11, which is a really huge release. I mean, we're covering a lot in today's release that I want to go through the different areas. We're going to cover DSIM, we're going to cover TAM, really go through everything that's coming out. Just a couple of notes. I know this is a recording, so you won't be able to ask me live questions, but you will be able to reach out to your CAM at the end, and I will remind you all at the end, or your account manager or your support person if you have questions about some of the stuff I'm going through. So with that, let's have a look at the subjects we're going to be covering. So like I say, I'm going to go through Asset Optimizer. I'm going to go through the whole areas that we've added in there. The big area really around is the BDM, the what we're calling the kind of the web front end of the BDM, or the editable search. So I'll cover some of that. Just so we're clear, the existing Excel-based BDM will be staying. We're not going to get rid of that. We're just adding capabilities from that in a bigger way in the UI, and I'll talk through how some of that is. I'll talk around related assets and some areas of improvement around what we're doing in the Asset Optimizer part of the system. So I'm also going to talk around Energy Optimizer, so Neo, some enhancements we've added inside Neo. Neo in the core of itself when it's running on its own, but also Neo and Neo Asset Optimizer, when the pair of them work together, and we call that Platinum, how we've unified and how we're pulling and pushing the data between the two. So I'm going to cover some of those areas. I'll also be talking around Asset Explorer. So Asset Explorer, just as a reminder for everybody, Asset Explorer gives us agentless discovery. So it means we can hit the network, find things, find what's on the network, find the hardware, find connections, find the software, and start using that data. And I'm going to really go into how we're using that data on the big piece, which is the real big push of what we're really focused on around with the system at the moment, is all around automation. We're going to try and make your lives as easy as possible and bring data into the core systems. So that'll be the areas I'm going to cover. So with that, I'm going to start with going through the BDM, or the web BDM, or editable search. It kind of still going through a name, because as I go through the capabilities that we'll be able to now do in 11 with inside the search, and I kind of explain, you'll see that we're calling it today, we call it editable search, the web BDM, whatever, but it's a lot more powerful. It really is powerful. It enables you to run a search. So if you go into the UI, you'll be able to go in, search for all of your assets, and in the search results that you see here on the left, you'll actually be able to edit those records there and then in the search, and then write those edits or changes back into the core assets. So similar to what you can do in the client BDM, you're able to do this in our search. What you can also do is you can add new rows. So you could copy or add more cabinets, more devices in through the search capabilities. So it gives you the ability to do all your edits, all your asset updates, all your ads in one screen, which is a very powerful capability, which the guys are really focusing on, and we're going to be extending this more as we go forward into the next release. But in 11, you'll be able to bring back your search, make your edits, make your updates completely bi-directional. Like you could before, you'll be able to save this search. So if you do this regularly, you'll have this in your browser, you'll be able to come back and find it. What you can also do, and this is when I was talking to engineering recently, which is I think is one of the most powerful things that you can do with this search, is as you create this search, as you're building your advanced search, and you're kind of saying, right, this is all the assets I want to return and the assets I want to edit, you can not only save that as a save search or export that to Excel, but you can actually export the REST APIs that are used for that editable search. And then you've now got something you can add to an integration team that can use those REST APIs to do a read-write to the Enlight system. So now you can really start sharing the information and sharing the APIs and how to communicate with Enlight and build the integrations to Enlight. So it's very powerful in the way that what it's doing is enabling you to use search to find equipment, find information, edit information, and now build APIs for other parts of the business to use. So it is something that I'm really pretty excited about and what it can do, and then where we're taking it is just amazing. So going through some of the points on other areas that we've added in here, kind of the big piece is, right, we're trying to make it as easy as possible. We're trying to keep you all in one screen for all your updates and updating everything. So there's a huge amount of capabilities in there. And because you can do all of this in the search, we're not talking like you can do tens or hundreds of records. You can do thousands of records. You bring back everything you got all in a single screen, edit everything all in one place, and you're kind of going through and making your updates. And I'm going to reiterate this one more time. As you build this advanced search, as you save this in your browser, you can export this RESTful API set to an integration team, and they've now got something that they can start using to pass and push data against the Nlight platform. All right, cool. So that's the editable search, or web BDM as we're kind of calling it at the moment. That's a huge capability, and that's a huge advantage that's coming inside 11. So moving on from that, we go to the next piece, which is, I think, again, the start of a really cool capability, which is you're able to now, inside 11, build relationships between the assets to say that these are related. So you'll be able to say, well, this is my primary server records, and these are my disaster recovery records. So you can build relationships between assets in different locations to say, well, if this fails, it's going to fail over to that asset. So you can start building DR plans. One of the other cool pieces what you'll be able to do this, we've got the water cooling in there, but what you'll be able to do is you could build relationships between your, say, data center infrastructure to say, these cooling units, and this is something we've kind of been talking around with UTC and those guys, right? These cooling units that are inside this room provide cooling to these racks. So now you build a relationship between the cooling and the racks. So now you've got not only your power relationships that you build through your power chains, you now can build relationships through your cooling to say, well, this cooling supplies cooling to these racks. So now you understand, if I lose this power in a data center, these are the racks that will be affected. Also, now you can start looking at things like, well, if I lose this cooling, these racks are going to be affected. So you've got that kind of capability now inside Nlight 11 to build the relationship between your assets. And I use cabinets and cooling and assets, but we're talking all the assets. So it's across all your assets, you can start building these relationships between the assets so you can start really seeing impacts, relationships, and then disaster recovery and everything else around that area. So it's a really good way of starting to build a greater relationship set rather than just the parent and child kind of relationships we have in there today. Okay, so next area I want to talk around is around analytics. So the presentation of analytics inside the core system. So today, if you look inside the Nlight platform, you've got reports. We use SSRS for that reporting capabilities. And then we have dashboards where we have Dundas dashboards presenting basically a basic dashboard capability, and you can build your own Dundas dashboards. So we're moving away from that. So we're standardizing on one platform. So everything now, so the reports will stay in SSRS. Dashboards will be removed from Dundas and will now all be in SSRS. And we've also added in the capability, one of the big pieces we've added inside analytics is this new custom analytics area. We were looking at all the different dashboard technologies, and I've kind of put the magic quadrants up here and the different products that are out there. And we were looking at them all and saying, well, do we add another one into the core system, or do we just let customers put their own tools? So that's what we've done. We've given you the ability to add your own. So you'll get our shipped dashboards, right? And you'll get our shipped reports to inspire you, and you can use SSRS and you'll be able to present your dashboards or your reports, sorry, and our reports all inside the core product. But you'll also now, with custom analytics, if you're, say, an example being Tableau, if you're a Tableau organization, you've built all your analytics, or all your dashboards, all your kind of reporting capabilities, and you've done that in Tableau, and you've used Nlight data, or maybe you haven't, maybe you've used your own internal data in, but you want the DSIM people to start seeing this information, you can now use custom analytics to present your own dashboarding reporting tool inside the core product. So you now got our dashboards, our reports that ship with the product, and now you've got the ability to add your own reporting type tool inside the system. And I know I've had a number of customers out there, I know a number of you have kind of asked for, can we have that capability? You've now got that inside 11. Put your own tool inside the core system. So moving from there over to analytics. So like I say, Dundas no longer. We're not using Dundas anymore. Everything is going into SSRS. This means that there's the dials that you see inside the core system today. You'll see some. If you remember, you've got your power dial, you got your asset dial, and you got some KPIs inside the old Dundas technology. We are moving away from that. Like I think I've been telling you all with the roadmap stuff. We're moving away with that inside 11. Everything now is KPI focused, and it's all about pushing change. What we're doing is we're giving you dashboards, new dashboards inside the core product, where you can set your thresholds, you can set your limits, and you can control behavior inside your business. Now, we're taking our inspiration, like I think I told you all as well before, look at the Data Center Optimization Initiative, the US Federal Data Center Optimization Initiative. It's a really good, the 1919 is really well written. It really explains how you should be pushing KPIs. We're using that as inspiration, but we're also using what you guys have asked for before around how do we look at information in certain ways. So we're kind of really giving you a KPI drive to help push change, optimize your environments, and maximize the usage within inside those environments. So the whole new bunch of operational dashboards inside the system. There's going to be real-time dashboards. So before we had some real-time data inside reports and stuff, there's going to be a real-time dashboard. It's going to come out there. You're going to have your asset counts. But we want to hear from yourselves, right? So if there are particular KPI, and I think KPI and measurement and pushing and a way you want to do things, think that when you're sending in feature requests around this area of the dashboards, and don't forget, because it's SSRS and you can have your own folder, you can use us as inspiration and start building your own. But we are really trying to push KPIs and driving of behavior inside a business now. So new dashboards, new capabilities, everything on a single platform. You've only got to learn SSRS now. It's standard. We've had it for a long while. So it really will give you a new presentation tool. Plus, of course, you can have your own dashboarding tool. Cool. Next piece. Right. So the federal M1919. Some pieces around that. So this is for the federal organizations, for those that are not on the call that are federal. You don't have to listen to this bit, but I'll go through it because you may want to take inspiration, and I do recommend you all go out there and read it. So there's some really cool capabilities that we've got in the federal, and these are also, we're replicating a lot of this and bringing it over. We've got tier rooms, so you can identify all your tiered locations within inside your organization. So start seeing those tiers. Work out when the end of lives are, what's closed, what's not closed. You can start seeing all of that. You can see your tier 1, 2, 3 rated data centers. So you'll be able to see the metrics on those, how many of those, what you've got left. You can start really looking around the virtualizations, cost savings of actually shutting a data center. So you can actually put a cost of a data center. What would be the saving if we shut this one down? So you can start seeing that. Virtualization, like I said before, you can start seeing virtualization accounts, and I'd suggest you start looking at our website around virtualization, around kind of the hybrid world. There's a lot of information you want to start paying notice, because we're going to be really pushing, like I talked to you guys before, around the virtualization and the hybrid world. There's going to be some announcements around that. Next one is you can look at uptime. We can, if we're measuring your energy, we can look at your energy, we can automatically identify and start scoring your uptime with inside your, basically inside your world, inside your data centers. We've looked at our colos and our managed service customers. We kind of got a standard metrics inside the system that will enable that. And we have that in the DCI V2. So we have that in there. And we have the energy metering and the uptime utilization and PUE. But the big thing here from the federal side of things, we'll have a whole new standard set of dashboards. For those that are not federal, like I say, I think you really need to watch this space, have a look at it, the M1919, see what it is, because we're going to be pushing this because you're kind of asking for it. We're going to be pushing this to help you optimize and maximize your environment, because it's a good framework and it's a good way of doing things. So a bit more on M1919, a couple more dashboards in there. Pretty much everything will be there from the federal standpoint. There'll be a whole new DCOI V2. I think that may have gone out already, but there's going to be a whole new piece of information around what that means from our side. And I think for everyone else who's not federal, you can find that obviously information around that on our website and stuff. But like I say, definitely read it, because it is a really good way of setting thresholds and driving behavior really within inside your organizations. So the next one, I know this has been asked for, and I know we've tried to get it on the roadmap. Well, it's finally, we've managed to do it. So inside 11, we can now do one-to-many network connections. So you can now start having the one-to-many splits and the breakouts within inside your environments. So you'll be able to now build into your network chain and network path, visualize when things split. As you can see in the diagram down the bottom there, you'll be able to see that inside the racks, you'll be able to see that inside the information, but you'll now be able to actually see your one-to-many connections and manage your one-to-many connections inside the core system. All right, so I know this is one that people have been asking for, and many of you have been asking for, should I say, but it's finally made it. Actually, we managed to get it into 11. It's this there, finally. So now you can do your one-to-many connections with inside networks. So the next one is around, really around capacity management. So what I know we may have talked about smart spaces or smart areas in the past, which is around trying to bring core teams to look inside the floor planner and understand capacity and customer usage and stuff. We've added some extra properties inside the floor planner now. So you can start building areas or zones on the floor plan, and you can start saying, right, well, these are the potential cabinets I could get inside that space. Is this space going to be reserved for a particular customer? So this is really, if you're in there, the colos managed service kind of area, these are, you know, this is going to be a container or an area on my floor plan that's going to have, say, 6 cabinets in it. I do want to consume this space, so I do want to hold this space, and it's going to be for a particular customer. So you can start putting your charge or cutting up of your environment with inside the core plan, floor planner. If you're not a colo, you're not a managed services, you could use this same capability if you were doing planning. If you were going to plan for a migration, or you were going to plan to build out an area. So you can start using this for capturing and pulling that data. Okay, so that's new areas for within inside the floor planner. Next one, when we're in the kind of the platinum world, like I said earlier, platinum, when we're in platinum, the primary system, the primary tool for capturing and entering all of the information is Neo. Right, so you put that inside Neo, the Neo information. Inside 11, all of the old custom fields and properties to configure all of that are all now standard. Primary Neo, when you go into Neo and you set up your circuits, your relationships and everything else, that's all now going to be passed across to Neo. So Neo is completely configured now. When we're doing our teamings and our circuits, all that data is now passed to Neo. So there's no need to go in and, like days of old, and set up the Neo system on that side. When you see creating things inside Neo, it's being passed to Neo. Okay, and then we take on that same premise when we look at the floor plan. Inside Neo, when you lay out your floor plans and you've built all your floor plan, you've laid all your racks out and everything else, that information now, the coordinates of all those devices, all of that is going to be passed across to Neo. So your assets from Neo, positions and layouts are now going to be passed across to Neo. So the Neo floor plan will all be automatically laid out. You'll be able to tweak a little bit if you wish inside Neo, but pretty much where we're heading here, and I think we're getting pretty damn close with 11, we're heading to where you're doing everything in the one system. You're going into Neo, you're setting everything up, it's being passed over to Neo, and then Neo is then obviously going to use that information for its polling and understanding around real-time telemetry. So coming to that last piece in this line here, we've removed all the custom fields that needed to be set up and updated before. These are all now standard fields inside Neo, and all of that data is automatically passed over to Neo. So Neo now is set up. When we set up Neo, we're kind of setting up Neo. Okay. On the same theme, when we look at Neo standalone was kind of all imperial. It is now global. So it supports imperial and metric. So it has both measurement systems in its support or in its capabilities now. So when you're in a platinum world, you can be in any part of the world, basically. So you can have imperial or metric calculations across the systems. Like I said, set things up inside Neo. It's all going to be passed to Neo in the background. Neo is now set up, and then you can kind of start reading the values from Neo, and you have an imperial and metric system all in one platform. So it's the big capabilities there around globalizing really Neo. Next one is another piece inside the platinum world. You can now choose where your measurement points are, where your formula points are with inside the rack, what piece of information do you want to listen to for the cabinet watts formula or for understanding the power that's being drawn inside a rack. So you can actually set that now, and you can choose your point or point of reference inside the platinum setup. Then we come to looking at Neo. So around Neo, so as you know, we're hyperscale. So Neo hyperscale, 150,000 racks. That's kind of where our benchmark number is. That's around about 6-7 million assets. What we've done with Neo is we've been hyperscaling Neo as well. So Neo standalone and Neo when it's together with Platinum, we've basically hyperscaled that system. So we're testing now at 1.6 million points. So that's measurement points. These are physical points, so nearly just under 1 million physical points, just under 500,000 formula points. So basically all of the circuits and power information we've set up inside our world, inside our test environments, and we're basically testing and pushing Neo to hyperscale, which means it now is kind of aligns with Platinum on the hyperscale side. We've gone through and done a huge amount of UI performance improvements and loading performance improvements and the way that we read data and present data inside the core UI. This in turn, obviously, when you're in a Platinum world, means you're getting all of this data a heck of a lot faster and at hyperscale. So just to give you some of the numbers, we're reading these size scale, this amount of information, we're reading like 1,200 plus odd cabinets in less than 7 seconds. Like we're seeing all of that data, bang, on the screen. You're able to start seeing that information from what we're collecting. It's a heck of a lot faster than it was before. So the guys have gone through, they've optimized all over the core Neo UI area for the loading and presentation of the data. So when you're in a Platinum world, you're getting that information a lot faster. Okay, so lots of performance improvements. Again, that's a common theme across all the release, is really around, you can't do anything, thank you very much. Thanks, Apple. Cool. So then we go through, so pretty much you're looking, like I say, you're looking at about a 95% improvement over performance inside the UI. So for those people out there that are using Neo or used to using Neo, you're going to notice it's a heck of a lot faster when you're looking at it through the screen. And in a Platinum world, that's also a heck of a lot faster for when you're pulling and pushing that information or seeing that information. Cool. So there's a whole bunch of other usability and performance improvements that have happened inside the core product. I won't go through them all, but I will go through the one that I know many of you asked for, which is around custom fields, being able to have drop-down lists or lists inside the custom fields. So you've got all your standard custom fields. You should have more custom fields now in 11, because now we've removed all the ones that we were kind of using when we were in the Platinum setup. So you've now got more custom fields to use, and you've also got now a new type of custom field, so you can have your drop-down lists or your nested lists. You've pretty much got a whole bunch of custom fields, plus you've got all of these other improvements around the core system. So that takes me through Neo, Neo, and Platinum. Gives you the kind of areas there. So there's a lot inside 11. I've kind of gone through it quite quickly because I want to get on to the next piece of how we're automating as much of this as possible. Okay, so in 11, the big theme is automation. So with that, I'm going to jump over now to TAM. And inside the TAM world, which is obviously the agentless discovery, Asset Explorer. So inside this world, I just want to set the scene a little bit for around the data centers. So when we're talking automation and when we're talking around automating DSIM, we're not just picking on the data center. We're looking at the edge environment. So you may have edge environments, different areas, you know, small edge environments. So I went to a customer, huge theme park. They have thousands of these little edge sites. Edge is something that's very important when we start talking more, and you'll see a lot of around the kind of the hybrid world as we start bringing the hybrid world together. So edge, this helps address and bring in the edge data. It also helps with the data center, understanding how the connectivity inside the data center. So I'm going to go through how we pull, how we take the data from talking to hardware, and then we represent some of that information and the connections of that information inside DSIM. So how we go through that. So this spans the edge, the data center, the closets, and I hope no one's data centers look like this picture that was found on the lower left, but we can read the connections and you won't have to work your way through that spaghetti to figure out how these things are joined together. We can actually read now with inside 11, we can read from the switch and we can read from the server's ports, and we can say, well, this cable goes to that switch port. So you don't have to play around with that spaghetti. But yes, we can start reading in your closets. So edge, data centers, and closets. And what's this all going to do? It's going to help remove that human error where you're trying to figure out and chase cables and get in there and you just don't have the time. I hear it all the time. Don't have the time. Networks have some tools, have some information, don't share it. There's different ways, stuff's not getting updated. So all of this piece, that pain piece, we're trying to hit, as well as all the other core pain pieces that I'll go through with inside DSIM. So like I say, we'll be able to, with DSIM automation, bring in, we've got your locations, you've got your dependency mappings, your physical network mappings, you're going to start seeing them. Your power supplies and your power understandings, you should have that today inside your Platinum system. There's some stuff on the roadmap, I won't be talking around that today, around how we're going to automate that world. Environmentals, all inside your Platinum system, so bringing it together. So now you've got your connectivity, you kind of understand your power, you kind of understand the temperatures, where the cooling, now with the related assets, how it all relates together. Your capacity, it's a core piece of DSIM, understanding what's being used, what's available. Workloads associations, understanding what's running on top of these devices. I don't really cover it in here today, but you know, we have all the hypervisors covered now, and we can bring in the virtual understanding against the physicals, and there's some pieces you see us talking around where we're starting to reach out to the cloud. But bringing all of that together into a single system and being able to understand the connections, this is where we're going with the automation. This is what we're bringing with Nlyte 11, this whole automation piece around how things are physically connected. All right, and I'll go through some of that. For the impact analysis, I will go through some of how that all fits. So automation and discovery. So we hit the network. So Asset Explorer hits that network. You give it the access to the areas where it's allowed to go through and find the information. It will find on your network, it will find all of your network modules. So if you give us access to it, it'll find the network module, it'll bring back the data, it'll understand the actual hardware itself. It'll bring back what is that, what is all the information around it. It'll bring back a raft of information. DSIM doesn't need it all. DSIM only needs parts, but it will have a huge amount of information, firmware, memory slots, all sorts of details around that piece of hardware. It will store inside itself. So Asset Explorer has a huge amount of data that it's found, and then part of that data is sent over to DSIM for the automation. So it'll find the modules, then it'll find your cards. So it'll hit a server, it'll read what cards has the server got, what ports are on those cards, what's the MAC addresses of those ports and those cards, and it will pass all of that data over to DSIM, and it will create those inside DSIM automatically, right? And then it's going to understand the ports. It's going to have the unique identifiers for when it talked to that module and the module says, I have so many ports. It's going to match that. It's going to look through. It's going to find the mapping of those ports. It's going to identify the relationship between the module's port all the way through to the cards port. So that's an example. So if I've got a network module, it now knows this network module has these ports, and these ports are connected to these ports on these servers. That's just one example. It could be that it talks to the module that's connected to another module, and it says, okay, these modules ports are connected to these modules ports, and it will build those relationships or pass that information into DSIM to build out those relationships. And I'll show you some of that in a moment. So you will get different areas of the business, and I kind of put this objection handling piece in there for you all, right? Because you're going to get, well, we have discovery. Well, we have a network team, and we have some monitoring tools, and we have all this data already, and you will have, right? Nearly every customer or everyone out there has probably about 5 or 9 different type discovery monitoring type tools sitting on their network, but they're all siloed, and they're all being used for different things. This brings in and uses this data to automate DSIM. And that's what you've got to be. That's your message for internal. This is not another replacement to go out and start replacing whatever network team are doing. This is automating the network connection information to DSIM, which in turn, and I'll go through some of these pieces, but it really does enable you now inside DSIM to, and I think we covered this before, but I'll go back over it just in case we didn't, which is when we're tied into the Asset Explorer and we're bringing back this information, we're reconciling all the assets. We're making sure all the assets are updated, making sure the properties on those assets are there. We're making sure that the assets that are on the network match the assets that are inside the DSIM system. Now what we're doing is we're connecting them all together. So we're saying, and this is how they're networked. And this is the available ports and how the connections are on those switches and on those modules and how they relate to the servers. And all of this data is being pulled automatically, so you haven't got to go and collect it into the DSIM system. All right, so it brings that data in. It enables you to keep the system up to date. So for those of you, and I know there's quite a few out there who've kind of stayed away from networks, haven't really done, it now means you have all that data inside the system. If you plug this in, that data is there. It enables you to now bring in the network data and understand the relationship between the assets on the network side. So, prime example, if I lose power to this network switch, what's the services I've just affected? What have I just lost? Who can't talk to the network anymore? You'll be able to answer those questions now. If I unplug this network, what services have I affected? If I'm working on a rack that is connected to something, what are the services? How many more network ports? How many more modules do I need to go? All answered through us being able to now talk to those devices and reconcile and bring that data into the core system to automate DSIM. Remove that workload from yourself or that pain and have DSIM keep that up to date automatically. So I've kind of got an example here of how that's coming in. I may have covered a lot of these, but I'll go over it. So Asset Explorer, agentless discovery, goes out, finds the data, passes over what's needed for DSIM automation. So it passes over the properties, makes the cards, makes the network connections, updates the ports, updates the relationships between device to device. So it gives you that relationship mapping. Inside Asset Explorer, like I say, there's a huge amount of information that's not needed for DSIM automation, but you're one click away. You just click on your asset with inside DSIM, and you've now got your Asset Explorer record with all of that rich data set that you can read through and use, and you can use the two data sources to do analytics around capacity and whatever. But what does it do? Right, so it helps automate the DSIM, make life easier, gives you your connections, gives you a understanding, automated, updated understanding of your data center modeled in a system. So you now have the relationships between all these assets, right? If we're connected to, say, ServiceNow, and you've got ServiceNow, or asset reconciling between ServiceNow, right? And you're using your ITSM, and that is your service management, your IT service management platform for impact and change. Well, now, when you have an impact or you have a change inside that world, it's passing through and reconciling against our assets. We now understand the network relationships between those assets. So coming back to that story earlier, if I lose the power to this switch, I've just lost network, potential network, to all of these assets, which in turn, if they're related to your CIs inside your ITSM, which means I've affected this service. So you've now starting to bring all of this together, and this automated, so you haven't got to manually do it. This is happening and passing and extending ITSM into the relationships. So you'll kind of know what's going on. You'll be able to, when you're doing your installs, adds, moves, and changes, rather than you going to a rack or going to install a server and finding that there are no network ports or there are no available modules or whatever that's needed for a particular change, you'll be able to look inside the system and trust the DSIM system around that side, because it's automatic, because it's reading exactly what you have inside the data center. So we're removing that human risk. You're able to read exactly what is there, which helps with your capacity management, helps with your budgets, and helps with your planning for, you know, we need to buy more modules, or we need to extend the networks in this area because of services growing. Maybe there's new projects coming in, or maybe there's change inside your environment. So DSIM automation really does help around keeping that piece of the network and the network understanding up to date. What it also does is we pull that in. So you're being able to see, like I say, all of that data inside DSIM automatically connected to what's happening inside your environment, which means inside DSIM, the trace view, this trace view, I kind of got it down there on the lower part of the screen, is automated. That's updated automatically. You're going to see these connections. You're going to see this built out. So if you're one of those customers, you haven't done your networks yet, you haven't added the network cards, you haven't built out your modules, you've kind of been focusing mostly around rack U capacity and space capacity, and maybe some power relationships, run DSIM automation, you now have all of these connections, as well as all of your assets will be reconciled and the properties updated, but you now have all the connections and relationships between those devices. And for those of you who have built out your networks and some areas of your networks, because you've got passive patch panels or whatever inside your environment, those passive patch panels will not be affected, right? So we'll be reading in the data from the consumer side, and I'm saying the server side, and then maybe the switch side or the module side. We'll update those two pieces. We won't mess around or break anything that you've done on the passive side. So those areas on the passive patch panels, they won't be changed or affected, all right? And then I kind of guess this, I know I'm drilling on this a bit, but what you'll see here is you'll have a network understanding or a representation in DSIM that is automatically updated and validated and read directly from the physical equipment within inside your data center. So there will be a whole bunch of area of human, no need for humans to go through and update all this data anymore. We're actually reading it directly from the hardware itself. So you'll be able to get your capacity management a lot better. So you'll be able to see what rates you're using ports, what rates you're using your modules, when do you need to plan to buy more, right? And then you'll also be able to understand if we do break this network connection, or we do lose this switch because we've just lost power in this particular rack or particular area of our data center, what is the impact? What servers are potentially affected? What workloads running on those servers are potentially affected? How do we let them all know? And how do we reduce the impact to business and cost? So that's that area around the network side. kind of really drilling into it here as well. I'll just go through, just make sure, right, so here, all of your network cards, all of your patch information, that's all going to be automated and read into the system. Kind of covered this already, so you'll have your networks and your understanding around your modules, available ports, port usage, the rate of usage, the interconnects between the devices. You'll have all of that information automatically updated in DSIM. So for those of you that are struggling to do it today, this is now automatic. For those of you who haven't done it, it's now automatic. So you now have another area of availability and impact analysis and management inside your environments, as well as the capacity management side of things. So that's the network piece, and we've really hit that hard in the 11 release. What we've also hit quite hard inside the 11 release, as well as all the reconciliation and the asset updates and the property updates inside the records, we also hit the chassis. So we've hit the server chassis, and we're making sure that as long as the hardware supports it and can provide it, we can map and automatically map where the blades sit within inside the slots. So we can say this blade sits inside this slot and make sure that the slot and the chassis is up to date. So that helps for your positioning, and for if you have an impact or if you need to send an engineer to site, you can say, right, it is in slot, whatever, and they can go directly to the device and see that inside the system. All right, so we're doing that for blades inside the server world. We're also doing it for modules inside the network world. So like I said earlier, we're going to find all those ports. We're going to find all the relationships between those ports. We're now finding where the modules are within inside the chassis, and we're also finding where the blades are inside the server chassis. So you've got all of this information being updated automatically, right? As long as the hardware can support it and send us the data, we can read it, we can start showing where these things are inside these chassis. We've solved a lot of limitations around the hardware on the network side of the switch ports understanding, and we've done a really good job of automating all of that. But when we get to the chassis and the modules, if they don't give us, if for instance the hardware is of an age or of a type, for some reason it can't give us the slot positions, we will place that module or that blade on the scratch pad. You'll be able to do a report and see that, but you'll be able to go in and move that module to the desired slot position. But at least you'll have part of the information to say this blade or module is associated to that chassis. But in 11, this is all automated now. So, and I'm going to reiterate this because this is a really big piece of lightening the load. I know everybody's been asking, how do we get life a lot easier using the system and getting the data into the system and out of the system? DSIM automation really does drive that. It's going to update your properties. It's going to make sure your records are up to date. If you wish, it will create records, build records, enrich the records, right? It will now build the network connections between those records. So you'll be able to say this card is network port to that switch, that module, whatever. And then when you unplug it, this is the impact. If I have an impact on a module, these are all the affected devices. Because if you're monitoring your power, you're connected to your power chain, you'll have that data inside DSIM. All right, so that was a lot. I know I've gone through it quite fast. And like I said, this is a recording, right? So you will be able to, if you do have questions, right, please talk to your account managers and they will, or your CAMs, and they will come back to me, or your sales rep or your support person. Just let someone know and then we'll get the answers to you. Like I say, there was a lot in 11. I've covered a lot, and there is a lot more coming. But I think this is probably one of our biggest and best releases for helping you guys keep the information inside the system up to date, and then using that to federate out to the connected systems. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to talk to you all very soon.